It's what we've all been waiting for since that very exciting day in December 2016. Where the hell is Joel? We have all these trailers with new characters and even gameplay, but Joel is nowhere to be seen. What is his role even going to be in part 2? Hey stragglers and tourists, my name is TheiPadCat, and in today's video we're talking about our favorite grumpy Texan. Where is he? And more importantly, what role will he have in part 2? But before we answer those questions, I'd just like to remind you of the TheiPadCat Discord server. Never heard that one before, right? If you want to discuss The Last of Us, suggest video ideas, or just find people to play factions with, it's the perfect place for you. Link is in the description. If more of you could follow me on Twitter, I'd also be glad, since YouTube notifications are really messed up most of the time, so a follow there ensures that you get notifications for new videos and whenever I'm about to stream. You'll find that link in the description as well. But let's not delay any longer. Let's do this. Just a quick side note. I've already made a video on the Joel is dead theory, so I won't mention that here. You can watch that video here. So, the idea behind the narrative for The Last of Us Part 1 came from a sequence in Uncharted 2, where Nate had to cooperate with another character he couldn't talk to for about 40 minutes of the game. Naughty Dog liked the dynamic between them so much that they decided to make a whole game around it. Of course, there were other inspirations as well, but the relationship story came from there. It evolved into the story of Joel and Ellie we all know and love today. Although we played as Joel for most of the time, both characters were equally integral to the story. In the beginning, they were both reserved and didn't really talk to each other a lot. But as time went on, Ellie opened up more to Joel, and that began to change him as well. We all know this, so what am I getting at? Well, by the time of part 2, Joel and Ellie have already gotten to know each other, and they like each other. We know that they are still the core of The Last of Us, as told to us by Neil Druckmann during the PSX 2016 panel. But we can't have that journey again. So what is Joel's place in the story going to be? It already seems that he is taking more of a backseat role. As if you didn't know, there wasn't a single moment in the entirety of The Last of Us Part 1 where either he or Ellie wasn't present. And now we have 3 trailers, out of which he only really participates in one in a pretty minor way. But even if he takes a backseat role, what is that going to be? I'd be really amazed if he's just a flat character in part 2. For those of you who don't know what that means, it's basically a character that doesn't undergo any change during the course of the story. Something has to happen to the relationship. There has to be intrigue. And as the relationship doesn't seem to be able to go the way it did in part 1, i.e. in a positive direction. I mean, they can't be more close than they were at the end of the first game. Many people have theorized that Ellie finding out about the lie at the end of the first game will be what starts the deterioration of their relationship. But it's implied that she saw through that as Joel was telling it. However, what Ellie probably doesn't know is that Joel murdered what really was her mother figure prior to the events of part 1. Marlene. If this somehow comes up, I'm sure it wouldn't be as easy to forgive as the lie about the vaccine. I think we will start out the game at a stage where everything is all good between Joel and Ellie. But then something comes up sometime at the beginning of the game that will drastically change their relationship for the worse. Then we can have some sort of opposite situation of the first game, where instead of Joel being the grumpy, emotionally closed one, so to speak, Ellie is now the character not opening up to Joel. One indication that Joel might be the one being more open and kind of the two this time around is what Jesse says about him in the E3 demo. How he gave him a hard time before going out on patrols, and how it was funny how involved he got once he was scheduled to go out. This seems much more like a caring and thoughtful Joel than in the first game, where it was all about him and his family. Although, it's worth mentioning that he may have acted that way because Ellie also is a part of those patrols. But still, Moving on, we know that The Last of Us Part 2 is going to be played from Ellie's perspective, and that this time around it's more her story. But does that mean we won't be playing as Joel at all? That he'll just be a slightly useless NPC companion at our sides sometimes during the story? Well, if you asked me before E3, I would have said, most likely yeah. But come E3 and we got an interview with Emilia Schatz, co-lead designer for The Last of Us Part 2. That reveals some pretty interesting things.
That in the first one there was 2 characters. You have to play with 2 characters. And now, since you announced the game, there's only one, Ellie. So what does it change exactly into the gameplay?
At this point we're just ready to show sort of Ellie as a playable character. That may change in the future, but we're not really ready to talk about that just yet. So I think there's quite a lot about this game that has not yet been revealed.
Okay.
Thanks to Breakthrough Gaming, by the way, for bringing this up in a video of his. When asked about if there were gonna be multiple playable characters, she answers that Naughty Dog, at the moment, are just ready to show Ellie as a playable character. And that may change in the future, but that they are not ready to talk about it yet. Now, is this other playable character Joel? Well, I don't know. What makes me uncertain is the PGW trailer. If you think about it, the end of that trailer looks exactly like a cinematic to gameplay transition. This makes me wonder if the mystery woman is going to be the other playable character. As I mentioned before, in the first game, we never had any moment without either Joel or Ellie. And wouldn't it be weird if we had that 5-minute cinematic just to transition back to Ellie after it? Although it could also be something made specifically for introducing those characters and not taking directly out of the game. Naughty Dog did this a little bit in the marketing for the first game, so it's a possibility. However, Schatz didn't specify that there could only be one more playable character. There might be a third. Technically, we had 3 playable characters in The Last of Us Part 1. Sarah, Joel, and Ellie. And it was similar in Uncharted 4 as well. Young Nate, Sam, and Old Nate. So I think a third one is definitely possible. Now, the third one is probably gonna be pretty minor, maybe playable for one short sequence of the game, like Sarah or Sam. But here's an idea. What if that short sequence is the mystery woman and the other main playable character is Joel? Ellie will still probably be the character we play for most of the game, but I definitely think Joel will be more than an occasional NPC companion. Finally, I'd just like to go back to the role of Joel in the story a bit. A commenter on one of my videos brought up an interesting idea. What if Joel were to take the role of a concerned parent to a teenager, having a bit of a hard time accepting change? That Ellie is growing up and maybe forming a family of her own with Dina and such. I think this is interesting, because then what makes Joel and Ellie fall out might not be a single event, rather something that happens over the course of the part of the game taking place in Jackson. It doesn't have to be one single super dramatic event, more like what could happen to a family in real life. The parts of Uncharted 4 where Nate was just trying to live an ordinary life were actually really good. So a part of Part 2 being like this would be very welcome, at least for me. But that's just what I think. What do you think? Do you agree with my points? Disagree? How do you think Joel will play into the story of The Last of Us Part 2? Tell me in the comments down below and let's discuss it. And until next time, have a great day.